Proverbs is all about living life God's way. God's saying, if you live life this way, you'll have my blessing, and if you don't, then I resist your life. And so man's way is a way of foolishness. He goes with the crowd. His mind is empty of God's truth. He is spiritually non-responsive. That means dead. He is hardened or callous. I'll tell you a callous story. I went to visit one of my friends in college, and he raised cows. His family did. And his mother was a typical Texan. She was just a wonderful hostess. And we got in the Jeep and went out to see their cows. And their cows were called Barzonas. And they stood about this tall. They were black and gigantic. They're a very large beef cow. And the mother said, have you ever learned about branding? And branding is where you take a metal shape, put it into a fire till it gets red hot, and then they push it against the side of the cow, and it makes a mark on the cow. Sounds horrible to me, but that's how they identify the cows in Texas. So she walked up to one of these black cows that I could not see over the cow. It was so tall and big. And she was wearing a hat, a big hat. And when you wear a big hat in a windy area, you pin it. So hat pins, if you ever heard of them, are about this long. They're a pin that's, pointed in metal that's holding her hat on. And she pulled out a hat pin. She walked up to that cow and she said, I'm going to show you something you'll never forget. I thought, wow. And she took her hat pin and went to the brand mark on the side of the cow, and she went and stuck the hat pin into the brand. That cow never stopped chewing. It didn't even move. She said, don't worry, it can't feel anything there. It's calloused. It's lost all sensitivity in the brand. She looked at me and she said, sin calluses. Sin makes you lose your feeling. She said, you're going to be in the ministry. Don't ever forget that. And I thought, can you tell? I've never forgotten that. You know what God says? Unsaved people are so used to sin, they don't feel anything. They don't feel God's conviction. They don't feel bad. They just keep sinning. And the longer you sin, the more it deadens you, it empties you, and you begin looking at worshiping yourself. And pretty soon you mock at sin. You laugh. When I was a student at Michigan State University, the professor started my class. His first words were, I am going to spend this class showing you that Christianity is mythology. He mocked God, mocked the Bible, mocked sin. And God says, those that are going man's way are perishing. And by the way, their path gets darker every day. So where are we in our journey? We are on stop number 8. We're looking at, first we looked at salvation, servant-heartedness, being selective in our lifestyle, being submissive to God, singularly focused, self-controlled, which is a fruit of the Spirit, stewardship-minded with our money, and now we're looking at being studious. And I call this embracing a godly work ethic. And look at my picture. How do you like this? God says, work hard and don't be lazy. He actually says that. Work hard and don't be lazy. That's not what your parents say. That's not what your boss says. God says that if you want wisdom, wisdom is only found God's way. And God's way is not like this world's way. I remember when I used to work in different places, you always have somebody at work that works real hard when someone's watching, and as soon as they don't watch, it's like when the boss comes, they're sweeping and just working, and as soon as the boss goes, they stop, and they lean, and they get on their phone, and they're just doing nothing until they hear the boss is coming back, and they sweep. And they think that that's okay. God says no. Laziness is man's way. God's way is a hard work, diligence, and a work ethic. And so we're going to trace that through the scriptures. So let's start by going to 2 Thessalonians 3. So real quickly, 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. And look how hard it was for Paul. When Paul went to minister, he was ministering to people that were pagans, that weren't exposed to Proverbs, that weren't exposed to God's wisdom. They were just normal people. And look what he says to them in verse 10. For even when we were with you, 2 Thessalonians 3:10, we commanded you, if anyone will not work, neither shall they eat. Boy, that's harsh. Did you know that's part of American culture right now? Did you know that's a cultural problem in America? Our American government is devoting more and more and more resources to give people, you know what they call it? Guaranteed minimum income or something like that. Right now, there are cities in America that give all the people $500 a month. They just give them $500 a month. They don't have to work. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to go to school. If you live in that city, they deposit $500 a month in your account. I'm not going to tell you where. I don't want you to move there, but it's growing. And what it is it's an idea of a society that denies God's work ethic. That's what the Roman Empire did, and that's part of why the Roman Empire failed, because they started feeding the people without them having to work, and they spent their whole day at the games, going to the Colosseum, watching sports and stuff. Okay, verse 11. For we hear that there are some who walk among you in a disorderly manner, not working at all, but are busybodies. Now those who are such, we command and exhort through the Lord Jesus Christ that they work in quietness and eat their own bread. God's work ethic is that we work. And Paul didn't just suggest it, he said, I command it.